The intention behind these calls is to give the community an opportunity to give the community and the ecosystem a platform to come together and hear directly from members from the THORChain core team, members from Nine Realms and THORSec on updates that are happening at the protocol level inside THORChain, and then also to give our ecosystem entrepreneurs and developers and founders a chance to share updates from their projects. So last week we had Archon hosted a panel with founders and members from XDeFi, Thor Wallet, and one other. I'm blanking on the last part. I apologize. But that recording just went live on RUNEBASE.org if anybody's interested in checking that out. And today we'll be joined by members from DefiSpot, of course, Chad Bareford, and Orion. Orion, if you're on your, I think if you're on your iPhone, you'll be able to join. I'm sending you a speaker request now. I see you in the audience here. And with that, I think, let me just make sure we're set to record. Orion, good to see you, sir.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today, Mr. Orion?
Doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me up. And yeah, it's great to see everyone, and looking forward to updating folks on the latest.
Awesome. And so with that, 10:06 here, I think the time is right. Let's hop in. I think a great place to start is with just a super quick introduction to each of you and the role that you're playing in THORChain and the ecosystem. Might be redundant for some people on the call, but also might be informative for others. So, Chad, do you want to start? Give it like a super quick intro to who you are and your role in THORChain?
Yeah, so my name is Chad Bareford. I've been a part of the project since very early on. My job title has always been technical lead in the project, but I'm actually thinking about changing that title and just like downgrading myself to like just core dev, just to keep it as flat as possible and not. I don't want to have big titles or whatever. Just keep it simple, keep it flat, keep it and just say core dev.
Awesome, appreciate that. And in respect and homage to the other members of the team, how many are there like that would share the title core dev on THORChain?
Ones that contribute to the actual core protocol. Most of the code is written by two individuals. The vast majority, I'd say, if you put those two individuals together, you're talking about maybe 95% of the code probably is written by two individuals on the core protocol. We've had recently more contributors adding in the last few months. So it's probably number of total contributors has ever committed a line of code or more is probably a dozen or so, I think, off the top of my head. But most of the code is maintained by two people.
That's incredible, and we appreciate your efforts there. Most of the core code is written by two. A dozen contributors have contributed at least a line of code, and then of course our friends at Nine Realms, which is a great segue or introduction into our friend Orion. Orion, super quick intro. Who are you? What's your role in the ecosystem?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So I play a supporting role at Nine Realms, working with the team and community and ecosystem in order to help grow THORChain and advocate for kind of broader needs that the ecosystem might have. Recently, I've been working with ecosystem projects in order to make sure that they have the resourcing that they need, whether that's finding devs or connecting them with other people in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you in that capacity. Here at THORGuards, you introduced us to legal counsel to help us navigate the kind of some of the legal and regulatory questions that we face as we bring THORGuards into its potential. And you guys have done so much more for the entire ecosystem, from investment to now like really getting involved in the weeds with securing the network, hardening the network, leading the THORSec initiative. And really just an all-around amazing booster and ecosystem champion. So thank both of you. Look at this. We are joined by another surprise guest, another friend of the project and member of Nine Realms, Pluto. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hey, guys. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Pluto, it's a pleasure to have you on board. I heard you just got set up with Twitter for this.
Yeah. Just now signed up. I try to stay off Twitter and focus on the real issues.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this doesn't kickstart a bad habit or anything, but we appreciate you taking the initiative and for joining us on the call. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
And we just got done singing the praises of Nine Realms. We appreciate the work you guys are doing. Can you give us a bit of context on your role in Nine Realms and what you're doing with inside THORChain?
Yeah, I joined Nine Realms initially to provide infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, and security. So essentially, if we needed to do multi-sig wallets across a bunch of chains for liquidity providing operations or other operations, that was initially going to be my role. And then as things escalated with the hacks, it kind of took on a new role. And so along with some of the other folks at Nine Realms who are more cloud and infrastructure focused, like Ursa and Aquila, we basically started getting more and more deep into the node launcher and how the cloud topology works for THORChain nodes, validator nodes, and also we started looking into more of like the protocol itself. And so the three of us were responsible for writing up the recent process that was sent out for validators to be able to resync after the recent consensus failure. So happy to take any questions about that. That was the result of some sleepless nights. Missed out on had to miss out on meeting my girlfriend's parents for the first time. So that was a bit of a just a stressful time, and really appreciate everyone for all the kind words and also support throughout this process, because it was pretty intense, but we're happy to have come out on the other side with a functioning network now.
Absolutely. And just want to acknowledge you for that personal sacrifice that was made there. I think a lot of times, sometimes it can be obscured when we, like as outsiders, when we're looking in, and we see that there's challenges with the network, but we forget that there's people on the ground there that are putting in sweat and energy and effort and heart into making this thing work. So appreciate you for that. I guess a great place to start for this call is kind of a overview or timeline of events on what kind of transpired over the last week. It's kind of a roller coaster ride in the THORChain ecosystem, where after the network was halted over the course of the summer, 2 weeks ago we celebrated the turning on of the Ethereum chain, the last chain to be reintegrated, and then getting the network back up and running. So take us from there, kind of what transpired, and set the stage for this week. I don't know if anybody wants to take that, Chad. Maybe if you want to give that a start, and then we can ask the Nine Realms team to add color.
Yeah, sure. So what actually transpired was that the network got into a state where each individual node had a different idea of what the truth was, right? And this was caused by a bug in the code that basically iterating over a list of things, but iterating over that list in different ways. Like some did it in this order and some did it in that order. And that in the end created a different yielding result of what the state of the chain is actually in. This particular bug was actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, inserted in the code like way back when. Like this is like early days, like before single chain chaos.net even launched. Like this is way back when. It's been sitting there for the whole time. And the reason why we never saw that on single chain chaos.net is because we never deleted pools. The pools would always like exist for forever, and we changed that behavior in multi-chain because we wanted to purge illiquid standby pools that are just sitting there doing nothing and costing to the network. And so those are deleted. And then so what ended up happening was the network tried to get information about a pool that didn't exist anymore, and it caused this kind of crash. So this kind of panic in a sense. And so then all the different nodes had a different state of like what the state was. Okay, that's a problem, right? That's why we couldn't produce blocks anymore, right? So myself and I think Pluto was there, and a couple other people started looking into what the actual bug was, which I think we figured it out within an hour or two, and had a patch open. I think I opened up a patch on it within a few hours after it was discovered. And then the next part was now we figured out the actual bug in the patch. That was kind of ended up being that was the easiest part in some sense. The next part is like, how do we unwind the network in a way that that undoes the last transaction, or the last not transaction but the last block. And so there's this new tool that the Cosmos community and the Tendermint community has been working on, called rollback. And so basically it's perfect for the situation. It's designed for the situation, which is easy to get into, and a lot of developers will probably agree with me on that. And so it's designed to basically roll back the last block, and then reprocess those transactions again to generate a new, end result for that block. But this new rollback function was relatively new. It was contributed to the Tendermint side about 5 weeks ago. And people have been talking about adding the Cosmos side of this thing for the last few weeks as well, but nobody's actually built it. And so we actually spent a good amount of time trying to finish the building this feature and then contribute back to the Cosmos ecosystem by doing so. And we did this, in coordination with and help with and assistance with some of the core developers over at the Cosmos team. We spent a good amount of time on it. Maybe it was like I don't know if it was 12 hours or 24 hours or something like this, trying to get an iteration that would work. And it was just not working. And the Cosmos developers themselves didn't really have a good sense of why it wasn't working. And it just seemed like it was a much more complex thing to solve than it seemed like at the beginning. So we just decided to time box it and not spend too much, burning too much time on it. It seemed like it was going to be a bigger deal to finish than it initially appeared to be. So we decided to kind of abandon this idea, let the Cosmos developers finish that feature of Cosmos, and get that done at a later date and time. So the next idea we were considering was to do a resync, which is what we finally ended up doing. So the resync is basically the same as rollback, where you're going back one block. Resync is going back, many blocks, and so it just made it more easily viable to go back many blocks than just a single block, as counterintuitive as that sounds. So that required a bunch of work that Pluto and other members of the team worked on to figure out a way that we can resync back from a snapshot of the individual nodes. Might have their own snapshot. 9realms provided another snapshot you could use if you wanted to, or you could sync back from zero. If you wanted to do that, you could do that too. It's up to each individual node operator to decide how they wanted to do it. But there's a lot of work around this because this has never been done before in Cosmos either. And so there was a lot of discovery work that needed to be done. And again, we worked closely with the Cosmos team to understand the best way of going at this to maintain reliability and all these kinds of things. It was a huge pain in the ass. It took many, many hours. But the individuals on the team figured out a way to do that and get it done. Ended up being pretty easy. Once you knew the right incantation to kind of cast, then you can just resync everything and the nodes come back up. But the problem we ran into after that point, which nobody saw, not even the Cosmos team, was that every attempt to make a block previously, while the chain was running days earlier, it was creating new attempts. And those attempts needed to be re-attempted after you did the resync. Oh my gosh, right? So that's about 1,057 attempts that were made. And then each attempt that is made, the network delays 0.5 seconds, right? A half a second. And so the time that it takes to do that was just going to increase of every attempt that you would try. It has a linear behavior to it, going up and to the right. And so if you calculate it all out, it would have taken probably 75.6 hours, I think, or something like this, for the network to try all those iterations, all those 1,057 iterations from before, to retry them again, to fail, and then we get to 10,058, which is like the new thing, and then that would have been good because everybody has the patch version of the code and would have continued on just fine. But 75 hours is obviously a long period of time, which obviously nobody wants to wait that, especially if you don't have to. So with this process of trying to figure out different ways of doing that, and different teams sprung out different separate teams that did separate approaches to how we could quicken that speed, and some individuals came up with the idea of just killing the write-ahead log, and then restarting the network, and also changing the configuration from being 500 milliseconds per attempt to 1 millisecond, and that allowed the network to restart, and then nodes to restart, and then blow through those 1,057 attempts in a matter of I think it's 17 minutes or something like this, if I remember correctly. So made it a lot faster, which is great. So once we get past those 1,057 attempts, 1,058 happened and everything was great. And the network's now producing blocks, which is amazing, right? And that's that segment of this story. Am I missing anything, Pluto or Ryan? Do you want to add anything about missing any step or point?
Yeah, I would just add that at one point we were not very confident that write ahead log nuke was going to work, and there was just other peculiarities. This had never been done before in terms of trying to resync a Cosmos chain from 0% to like roll back a block. So, at one point we were like, well, what do we do if we wait 55 or 75 hours and this doesn't work? So, during that time we were even exploring the possibility of doing a soft fork. And I think that the important thing here is that we had different teams, as Chad said, working on different options throughout the entire period. So we had different contingencies about what happens if if resync doesn't work after 55 hours. Let's soft fork, but resync is the safest option, so that's what we're going to try first. We're still going to continue to invest in disaster recovery exercises after this. So we want to, be regularly trying all three of these options and help see through the development of that Cosmos and Tendermint native rollback feature. We want to perform, resyncs often just to make sure that we can do that. And part of that might be, offering a snapshot service to help other nodes bring up their full nodes more quickly. And then also, the software option, that was something we were very, very, very hesitant to do. And maybe, Chad, you can offer some more insight as to like why that wasn't just the first and most immediate thing that we tried, when plenty of other Cosmos chains, like even Gaia, the Cosmos hub itself, has hard forks. So maybe we can speak to what our hesitancy was on that.
Well, yeah. So the only way that you can actually upgrade or change the code, but the old chain basically dies. Like everybody stops committing new blocks to it. For us, we actually can't do a quote hard fork. It's actually not possible on THORChain because you cannot hard fork the Bitcoin and the Ethereum and the Tether and all the other assets. They can't duplicate those on two different chains running simultaneously. Doesn't make any sense. So the only thing we can actually do is what we call soft fork, and that's how most chains actually do upgrades. So basically, what that means is everybody coordinates to say, okay, at block height, 800,000, we're all going to halt the chain simultaneously at the very same block height, very same second, and then we're going to export the chain into a JSON file, some big JSON file, and then we're going to create a new chain, and we're going to import all that old data into the new chain, and then start the new chain, at block height 1, or sometimes you can do it from 8,001 if you want it, 800,001. Depends on how you configure it. But that's how they do software upgrades, right? And we actually, in terms of the design, we kind of pushed against that idea, right? And the reason why that is because Gaia only does, software updates like once every 6 months, once every 9 months, something like this. So you really can't have fast turnover and do bug patches, do changes, releases, these kind of things at a fast pace because it requires a huge amount of coordination from everybody, all the node operators, to coordinate together to halt everything at the same exact second, and then everybody exports and then re-imports and then restarts and then everybody comes back up again. And if everything that goes very smoothly, you'll probably take the chain offline for half hour or an hour or something like that. And it just requires everybody to be online at the same time, at the same second, which, you can imagine for a decentralized project where everybody's across the entire planet, finding a specific hour where everybody can do that is a bit difficult. But to make things even more difficult from THORChain's perspective is the amount of data that THORChain has is actually a lot larger than every other chain, right, out there. The number of transactions per second this chain has is like an order of magnitude larger than just about every other chain out there. Every other Cosmos chain, maybe with the exception of maybe Terra might be the exception to the rule. But the amount of data that we have is huge, and it cannot be exported in a JSON file because you'd have to put the entire state of everything into a JSON file, which means you have to put everything, all of the state of the blockchain, into memory, which is hundreds of gigabytes. So you're not going to fit that in memory to be able to export a JSON file, let alone import it again, which would be very, very time consuming. And you'd have all sorts of failure scenarios, and it would just be a calamity, I think. So we've never done a soft fork before. My personal hope is that we never have to do one. The only time we actually would be required to do one is if we have to migrate the data itself, like the structure of the data, which I don't think we'll ever need to do necessarily unless Cosmos makes some sort of change again, where they change from their encoding, the JSON-based encoding system to the protobuf's newer system, part of Storygate. But I doubt we'll ever get there. personally, but there's an argument that some people make within the community that we should purge the chain and its data every 6 months or so and just like start fresh, right? That doesn't make sense to me personally, but people have different opinions on this. I think it's a blockchain. It should maintain all state. By changing the state conditions and then forking everything and then dropping 90% of the data and expecting everything to come back up again and not having any bugs is very rosy way of looking at it, I would say. So I personally don't like the idea of soft forking. It's not we don't need to, unlike every other chain in the ecosystem. It's a lot cleaner, faster, and simpler to just have people upgrade their individual nodes whenever they feel like it asynchronously. And then the network just upgrades when it can without anybody needing to be coordinated. And it's not a big deal. It's a big deal for them because for a lot of their chains, like everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows who all the validators is. Like they literally have like brunch together.
Yeah, like docs nodes.
Literally, they're all doc nodes, and they literally sit down and have lunch together or whatever. And that's just like, for us, we're just like, that's a design that we don't want to have. We don't want the nodes to know each other. We don't want the nodes to connect and talk and collude and do all these things. And if you create a chaos net node channel where all node operators can just dox themselves, that creates a whole new series of security issues to be mindful of. So we don't want to do this coordinated upgrade path. And so we actually spent a lot of time investing in creating an upgrade path that was more difficult to code on the coding side, but it made a much cleaner way for us to iterate and make patches and fixes and add new chains and add new features and do all these things with like rapid speed. I think most people in our environment and our ecosystem probably are not even aware of like how painful it is and how slow it is to do like a patch on another chain. For us, it's a lot easier, faster, quicker, and more reliant the way we've designed it on this particular system.
Yeah, and I've heard from other friends at Nine Realms that this is despite actually, the community had a really kind of cool response to this, and we haven't seen, despite the challenges here, any sort of negativity or FUD as others pointed out, as Meow Brains, I think it was. But behind the hood, we understand that some monumental work has been done over the last 4 days. And that without the efforts of everyone jumping in on this, this was a really strong team effort. So, big, again, just acknowledgement and thank you guys for the work that you've put in over the last week. And I know that there's been a lot of, Pluto, as you mentioned, that personal sacrifice as well. Yeah,
I think the important thing to remember about that is that like this issue we just had, for example, it's just a bug. Like it's like,
yeah,
it's a bad bug. It caused the network to halt, which is obviously not good. But it fundamentally the code works. Fundamentally, it actually delivers its promise of what it's trying to do. The fundamentals are identical. They have not changed in any of those incidents we had in the summer or this this bug we had this week. None of these things actually change the fundamentals of the product of whether or not it's able to accomplish what it's able to accomplish. It's just ironing out the edges, these kind of ironing out these edge cases where some random situation kind of pops up and causes an issue. Okay, we just patch that and move on, right? And just keep on doing that for as long as it fucking takes. I don't care. Just keep on patching it, and then you'll get to a place of where it's exactly where we all think it can and will go to, which is delivering on cross-chain swaps in a completely reliable and decentralized way, which is a critical hair on fire. We need to have this in the crypto space kind of problem to solve, right? And so don't get distracted by there's a bug. Who the fuck cares? It's just, we'll patch it, we'll move on. As long as it's not funds lost, whatever the issue is, whatever the bug is, I really don't care. We'll just patch it and we'll move on and everything will be fine. As long as enough funds aren't lost, whatever, fix it, move on, and then keep on pumping blocks and doing trades.
100%. And we're with you all the way. What is the state of the network now? Yesterday we celebrated, just a great milestone coming out of it with blocks being produced again. What is the state of the network today, and what do we have to look forward to over the next few days?
Yeah, I think the last component that happen now is just getting the LP actions enabled, which I think is going to happen quite soon. And then, that's it. All we need to do for the part of this recovery.
Awesome. So LP actions will be turned back on soon. Other actions on the network are online.
Yeah, I think everything else is online. Trading is enabled for everything. The only thing that's remaining is just enabling LP actions, which the only reason when that's not enabled now is just we're just waiting for the pools to be corrected, which I think they're corrected now, I think. So it should be happening probably in the next hour or so.
Awesome. And then I'm curious if there's any like if coming out of this, if there's any change in process or procedures that have evolved, like lessons learned coming out of this.
Yeah, I think what we learned was that we need to have more work done in terms of disaster recovery, and I think we have that now. And there's still more to do. We're not done with that per se. There's more work to be done around soft forking, for example, just so we have that path if we need it. Just kind of put it on the shelf if we actually need it at some point. Now that we know how to recover the chain in a consensus failure situation, if this were ever to happen again, which I honestly don't think it would, but if it ever did, we have the tools to make it pretty fast and easy to recover from, or at least a lot faster than this previous time.
Awesome. And is there? You mentioned a tool that was developed on the Cosmos side just 5 weeks ago, and it would allow Cosmos chains to roll back the network one block. But for various reasons, that didn't necessarily work out for THORChain this time. Is that something that will likely be available in the future in case it's necessary, or is there some sort of fundamental kind of reason why that won't work for THORChain?
No, I think it can work in the future. I think it was just too early. That feature is still being built and being worked on. It just hasn't been baked yet, And I think the Cosmos and Tendermint team will finish that feature, as part of their layer. I hope it'll be done pretty soon because it's just something every Cosmos team needs for sure. I think even Osmosis was implementing this feature for themselves just last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, just so they can easily roll back if they need to in various scenarios. So it's definitely a feature that everybody needs, and I'm sure they're going to work on it and get it done. And if that comes, then great, we'll probably just use that over the resyncing thing. It's a lot faster and quicker to recover with a rollback than a resync for sure. A lot cleaner too. So we're just kind of always wait for that team to finish the work on that feature, and then we'll suck it in.
Awesome. So I opened up to questions from the THORChain Twitter. If anybody has questions, check out our Twitter feed here. The most recent tweet, you can just drop questions in the comments below. I'm seeing a question that's come up here a couple times, but there was a tweet earlier a few weeks ago about a potential timeline to mainnet, which would say by Christmas. Is there any kind of effect on that timeline, or are we still on track for a Christmas mainnet launch?
Yeah, so part of the requirements of mainnet was we want to have about a month worth of clean operation and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to finish some features, launch a few chains. I think Terra was going to be a part of that. Pluto's we're working on the Terra integration in a bunch of chains, light nodes, or they're called vault nodes, I think they're called now. All that kind of stuff. Whether that happens this side of Christmas, or this side of in 2021, or post 2021 in 2022. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. It could go either way. I'm not really sure.
Cool. Well, we are here for it, whatever unfolds.
Yeah, one thing connected this to just chime in from the Nine Realms side too, of Chad's been doing just an amazing job. But on getting to mainnet, sorry, I've got my daughter here and a phone in one hand. Spaces is great for that. It's the work that's gone into this, like Chad was saying, in terms of just getting it to a place where things are just running smoothly and we're just knocking bugs out. Part of getting to mainnet is that sense of just stability, where we've got a foundation where we just know that the basic functions of what we need to do to achieve what we all know can be done are just humming along, and we're getting there. So in terms of mainnet, we're close, but there's the amount of work that's gone into this, it will continue to go into it to just get this thing to a place where these calls are going to be more about what's going on top of this thing as we just start to hammer out all this base level stuff. So anyways, to everybody who's listening, major thanks for bearing with this. We've been learning a lot of good things in this process. We've been improving it in terms of communication. I think that's been very clear. But what's around for the next season is a lot of improvements. So anyways, just major thanks to you guys.
Yeah, one thing to note there is that like just because the network takes a new label of mainnet doesn't necessarily mean that there are no bugs. I don't want to set that expectation because that's a little no project in the world, including Bitcoin, can offer no bug. I mean, Bitcoin had infinite mint bug in like 2018, like 10 years after it was mainnet. So like, so like it's. I don't want to set the expectation that there are going to be no bugs or issues post mainnet because there's a good chance that it will because code has bugs and it happens all the time, even on Bitcoin. But I think the intention behind the mainnet label, at least in my view, is just getting it the base number of functionality in terms of like we can add more chains, we can release the caps, we can do all these kinds of things, and have the kind of the base functionality working. That's what I consider mainnet in my head. And then after that, we still have to harden a bunch of other things and we'll patch bugs as we find them, of course. And then we have more things we want to build, like in the DeFi space, like in the THORFi features that we're always kind of thinking about in the back of our brains and stuff. So we want to continue to work on those things and deliver that. I think 2022 will hopefully be kind of the year of THORFi in a sense, and be just launching more and more protocols on top of THORChain that will offer much more capabilities to the larger community.
Yeah, the very next thing to look out for is going to be activation of the synths. And so we're going to be announcing soon on testnet what we're calling the Thor games, which is essentially wargaming out different scenarios, economic and code attacks that could occur on synths, and they'll be incentivized by various tiers of bounties from minor issues, UI issues, just reporting those and helping us get ready for the release of this project, all the way up to the most critical bugs, some of the economic attack vectors that could, put LP units at risk. So we're going to announce more about, what the criteria are for those in the process, as well as the bounties pretty soon. But expect to see that soon in the upcoming, probably next week. We'll start that war game process. And then after we've, had that open for an ample amount of time and had THORSec banging on it as well, we'll be ready to activate the synths as well. So yeah, look out for that as kind of the next major update to the protocol.
That's been a fun initiative to kind of watch come to life here in some of the chats that we're in. This kind of, I think we call it like build, bang, ship process of, kind of battle testing synths in a testnet scenario here with help from the community. And so the initiative, I guess we'll stay tuned here on the THORChain Twitter account and also from Nine Realms as that initiative goes live. And that's an opportunity. Someone asked in the Twitter threads, or in the Twitter comments, what's some way, like how can you get involved in the protocol and contribute if you're not an engineer? And this would be a great opportunity. So stay tuned here on Twitter for updates on that. Gavin, that was an initiative that I first heard from you. Can you talk a little bit about the thinking there? Like what is what's the goal behind, I think, kind of this open crowdsourced initiative to help test things on testnet?
Well, it's like there's no one person that's smarter than all of us, right? And so we've got one of the strongest communities in the broader crypto ecology, and how do we actually pull on all the intelligence that's here? And so I completely grok the idea of sometimes it seems really opaque to have surface area to interact with THORChain if you're not an engineer. It's like, how do I actually contribute if I care? And so that's kind of what we've been thinking about over the last little bit of time of all right, how we ship features, because how we ship features matters. It's not just here's some code, here's a pull request, everybody check it out, test it on, hit it on testnet, and then we ship it. If you think about a major layer one, when they ship a large feature, they get the community involved. And so part of what we've been designing is what does it look like to ship major upgrades? So something like synths. Well, it's not just a feature flag that goes off. We need to game this thing out economically from a number of points. And so part of just improving the process of how you even build something like THORChain requires thought. And so one of the evolutions here is kind of where Thor games came from. Like Pluto was saying, Pluto and Orion, who are both on the call, have had a major hand in thinking through and designing this. And the idea is that when there's something big, open up the surface area for anybody who wants to participate and really help try to game it. And so the idea being, all right, so if THORChain is a predominant layer one asset backbone, you have a lot of interfaces on top of it that expose these features. You've got Broker, you've got THORSwap, you've got a bunch of these folks who are doing this. And so that's the touch point. And so in order to make sure that something is watertight and rock solid before you ship it, because we'll get better at doing that, you've got to then say, okay, well, let's loop those folks in. So, because that's where you get your synthetic, it's where you go to the faucet to make your synths or it's just, you've got to have kind of this stack ready. And so then what emerged was just this idea of, well, let's call it, you usually call things war games when you like try to break it. So we've got, Thor games being the idea of now we've got a lot of like in the economic design channel and in the general channel of Discord and in THORChain's Discord, there's a lot of great conversation that happens. Let's give these same people the bounties, economic incentive, and structure to just go bang on some new features that THORChain is going to be shipping. So that way it's not just like, go read a bunch of Go code. No, not going to happen. Instead, here's the parameters of the game. Here's how much you can make if you break it. And here's where you can go to start playing. And here's the people who are coordinating so you have points of contact. Because otherwise it's too, again, there's just no foothold to gain surface area. And to us, it matters to have anybody who wants to be involved. This isn't just a network for engineers to talk, engineering nerdery. This is an ecosystem, and it's going to be a major layer one ecosystem. And so we need to start developing it as such. This, I think, is a major step in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and can I just say, one of the things I love most about this network is the sequencing of how things can evolve. The PR for synths was closed and merged into Thornode 10 months ago, and so part of our role as guardians of this network is to ensure that the right features are being activated at the right times when it's appropriate for the evolution of the project. And I think that's something that's really unique to THORChain, is that we can kind of sequence these things, and the transparency of the channels that we have, the THORChain Discord, just really allow these things to be thought out and gamed out by many, many more people than any other project I can think of.
And also to follow up on that, for anybody who's on the call who actually is interested in this, this stuff is pushing the edge of DeFi primitives and network primitives. And so if anybody is sitting there listening going, God, I'd like to contribute, if there's not something that's shaped up where it's where you don't exactly know how to slot in, but you want to, just reach out on Twitter, hit me up on Discord, hit any of us up on Discord, and we'll have a chat about where do you want to plug in? How do you want to contribute? Because that's it. It's again, don't let the opacity of something that seems like this be something that effectively turns you off from contributing. A lot of folks have shown up, and that's the thing is people are showing up every week in an increasing rate. So anyways, this is kind of our attempt to just put more structure around it to give everybody a better shot at seeing what's coming down the line and how to bang on it.
Love it. And it occurs to me that there's maybe some sort of parallel here between this initiative, this Thor Games initiative, and THORSec. Can you talk about the role that THORSec plays in testing new developments on THORChain and how that might sit alongside of Thor Games?
Yeah, and anybody feel free to hop in here. I don't want to just monopolize and speak here, but with the THORSec, the arrangement is set up. It's again, picture any major tier one exchange, and they've got this security team that isn't focused on writing the infrastructure. What they're laser focused on is making sure that everything they're testing everything that's being shipped, right? And so those war games are already going on behind the scenes. Every PR that matters, everything, and even for when there's not a PR that's up, they've caught a couple of things and they surface them. So their job is the always on red team watching things, because it's not Chad's job to be the best defensive coder in the world. He's not going to be. No team ever has and on our side, it's we're not going to be the always on security team if we're helping build the network. You need to segment the functions in terms of where expertise goes, right? Offensive coders and defensive coders are sometimes not the same people. And so think of this as just a world-class defense team. So any amazing team has good offense and defense. These guys are the defense. They're amazing. And they've already been plugged into the flow for the last several months, improving things. But for something like Thor Games and THORSec, there's a natural overlap in the Venn diagram. It's pretty heavy, but that's already been going on just as part of what they do, is they just game things out. That's their jam. But what it also does, that's probably a little less obvious, is it provides a point of interaction for other security researchers where it's not just so it's not it can be a little frustrating if you're an expert in your field and you come to talk with somebody and they're not speaking the same language or they don't know as much as you about something. What THORSec does for something like Thor games or anything like this is it provides a world-class interface for people who are really sharp at what they do, who want to talk about different exploit vectors, different issues, and you can have meaningful dialogue that advances the state of the system or talks through a bug, and it's not just kind of like dismissive and pedantic, which is meaningful. We want to like be looping in some really good folks for contribution, so having that interface matters.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that context, and it's great to see in the wake of everything that's transpired this year, all these initiatives that have taken THORChain from, just kind of a scrappy upstart into a much more robust, not just protocol, but also processes around the protocol. So things like THORSec, Thor games, and then also with the bug bounty programs that are, launched in partnership with Immunify. And all of these are just battle testing and hardening the network in all these different ways, from making sure that every update and every piece of code is kind of, runs through the ringer with THORSec, and then making sure that from in a much more open way, like through Thor games, that these, the economics and everything of synthetics, for example, and their effect on LP units in the pools is battle tested, and these scenarios, which can't always be, you can't always account for every scenario just in isolation or in a vacuum, but actually opening that up to some actual exercise with actual users in a test kind of scenario, all will serve to set the foundation for what we're looking to in 2022 and beyond with THORFi. Thank you guys so much for providing this context and for all the work that you've done over the last week. Anything else to add here about this little chapter of THORChain before we get into some ecosystem updates?
Ryan here. I'll just jump in and say the response from the community was really inspiring as well. There were various community members that stood up, websites and dashboards in order to help provide some visualization around the state of the network as we were rolling out fixes, and that was awesome to see.
Absolutely. And to that point, we spoke earlier this week with Flipside Crypto, an introduction we had through you guys at Nine Realms for the RUNEBASE podcast, and we'll be publishing that next week. And Flipside Crypto is another example of the THORChain ecosystem growing and becoming more mature, where they help analysts and data scientists just kind of like give them a platform to visualize data coming from L1s like THORChain, and so more to come on that. Chad?
There's one thing that's actually coming up that it's actually really interesting that we haven't spoken about this publicly, I don't think, very much. And Gavin, you're welcome to chime in and talk about it more than I, because you're probably more aligned with it or been in the weeds with it than I have. But some of the kind of mathematicians in the community have been working on a new kind of equation, so to speak, that allows the network to analyze its economic behavior to figure out if something is amiss. So we put these like blanket protections on the network for like solvency checks, for example, and outbound transactions to make sure there's nothing weird happening or outside the ordinary. And so now we have this new equation that we're looking into that actually can help us determine if the network is economically not behaving the way it should either, right? This through maybe impermanent loss protection, for example, would be a good way to manipulate. And this equation can actually let us know if something awry is happening. It's really quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to add, Gavin.
Totally. And Orion has been leading the charge on a lot of this stuff, so feel free to hop in. But like, another like call out to the community. We're going to be applying more formalism to the system so that we can create other types of state checks to check that things are accurate. And so what Chad's describing there is kind of the first of this. It was pretty organic in how it emerged, but some of the folks that are working on some of the middleware are really good about applying this type of rigor to a system. And so we're going to start leaning more into that. So that way we have just different types of checks and balances within the network itself. So you're not just relying on unit tests, things like that. But anyways, if any of you guys are more, or anybody is a little bit more mathematically oriented and this is of interest, again, feel free to reach out and we'll figure out how to plug you in, because this is another part of the network's development that's just kind of starting to open up.
Yeah, I'll hop in here to add a little color. So the metric that Chad is referring to is called LUVI, or Liquidity Unit Value Index. And the gist of it is that we're able to kind of decompose the yield of a pool in order to look at what portion is coming from kind of price changes of the underlying assets versus the block rewards and fees. And the short story is that we would expect that a pool's LUVI index will always be increasing. So if there's any situation where it decreases, then there's a problem and the pool is losing value. So I've set up alerting around this, and I'll put together a blog post to explain the logic around it as well and share that with the broader community. But it's an exciting place to be, because we can start to apply some more rigor to the whole process and be able to alert on behavior that is abnormal.
Thank you for that update. And it's great to hear some of the things and the tools that are being built kind of behind the curtain, so to speak. These are things that we on the outside don't necessarily have perspective on until sometimes they make their way above water. If people are paying close attention in the dev discords, or maybe things get revealed here on Twitter. But it's great to hear that, and also this platform, these weekly calls are just a great way for this information to get disseminated across the community. I think it's a great continuation of the transparency that I think the entire community has appreciated from THORChain from the early days, with the weekly dev updates on Medium, the very transparent open communications in Discord and on Twitter, and then now here through this weekly live stream. So Chad, Gavin, Orion, Pluto, thank you guys all so much again for the work you put in, not just this week, but for the months and years before, and weeks, months, and years to come, as we chart out our journey to Valhalla together. Thank you all, and we deeply appreciate you. With that, we'll transition real quick to a quick spotlight on some of the ecosystem updates that have happened here over the past week. And with that, we're joined by DefiSpot. I think, do we have Oscar or Rune Degen who?
Yeah, it's Rune Degen. It's on air. So,
Degen, thank you for joining. What is going on in DefiSpot's world? What's the latest?
Yeah, so now we are, and thank you for the introduction there. So now we are, working on a platform, trying to get it ready for December 1st, which is the original launch date. It's obviously been some troubles with the halted network for the last week, so the devs might be a little bit delayed on some parts, but we are still sticking to the plan. So we will update if anything happens there, if we won't be able to execute all features until 1st December, or December 1st. So that's what's going on right now on the platform. So the prototype is getting finished up, and we will be able to share some sneak peeks of the newest design and what's going to be launching on the version 1.
Very exciting. And for anybody that's unfamiliar, could you offer a quick elevator pitch on what is THORSwap what is DefiSpot, and what it brings unique to other interfaces in the ecosystem like THORSwap and others?
Yeah, sure. DefiSpot we are a multi-chain DEX, and we're built on THORChain. And what's our mission here is to try to remove the largest barriers for newcomers to try DeFi, and especially THORChain, because our real mission in here is to onboard the masses from basically all exchanges. Actually, we'll start out in the DeFi space and actually start moving on to the centralized exchanges, and get them over to THORChain. So, but in order to make that possible, we figured that we need to remove most of the barriers and all existing barriers, like a lack of overview perhaps, and functions, and which might be hard to execute in order if you're not experienced with DeFi from before. So that's our main goal there, and how we're going to do that is to actually basically creating a simple and easy to use interface. It's looking a lot like the functions that you're basically using on Coinbase in order to convert or swap. And yeah, well, obviously the liquidity was provided by its own users through the THORChain protocol. And yeah, so it will basically be the, like we like to say that we will be the first ever decentralized exchange working in a traditional manner in terms of what people are used to from centralized exchanges, and how to use this to use the platform in order to trade, and also of course provide liquidity and do that with a better overview and what they're used to. So which will actually remove most barriers in order to try out the DeFi space and start doing that instead of jumping around on the centralized exchanges.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that the community is most excited about with DefiSpot is just some of the teasers that you've released with your user interface. I mean, the simplicity really comes through. When it comes to mass adoption, I think the two things that are kind of standing in the way of onboarding more and more normies into decentralized finance and decentralized exchanges is, on one hand, user interface, and then on the other side, education. And those are both things that DefiSpot has plans for. So can you talk a bit about the education that you guys have planned and the initiatives that you have in that department?
Yeah, sure. So on the platform, it will be an own section, actually a learn section, where you will be able to learn how to provide everything from how to swap decentralized, and how to provide liquidity. So we will do a lot of videos and explanation videos, and of course a lot of good content from LPU. We're also partnering up with Cryptonary there now, and of course RUNEBASE. So we will be having a lot of great competence there in order to remove these barriers and actually educate the users before they jumping into the DeFi world and try out swapping, liquidity providing, and all of the products that THORChain can provide. Because and this is the only, we've been trying to do this for a while. We've been testing out a lot of decentralized exchanges, and we have also had this dream that how would this be, would it be able to actually being used with the traditional manner, and THORChain is the only way to make this possible, because it's cross chain, right? And you won't need to wrap coins or bridge anything. You will just, everything will go smoothly on the back end there, thanks to THORChain, and the user won't mainly even know they're using THORChain, because and that's also one of the reasons why we are neutrally branded, because we really love the THORChain ecosystem and everything that's THORChain branded, but we figured that we need something in addition to that through the neutral branded, so we can onboard the non-biased users as well from every chain and every other exchange and communities.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your efforts. We're looking forward to December 1st, and we're looking forward to partnering with you across both RUNEBASE and THORGuards. We have some fun things in the works as well. So thank you, DGen, for the update. And just, I guess, real quick kind of bullet point updates here for everybody else, or for other parts of the ecosystem while we wrap up here. XDeFi concluded the sushi miso stage of their token sale and auction, and they are now live and trading on SushiSwap. And they have some incredible yields available for their XDeFi token and Ethereum or wrapped ETH pools with 1,000% APY when I checked this morning and entered the pool myself. So you can check out our friends at XDeFi, xdefi.io, to learn more about that. Also, THORGuards, our NFT project for the THORChain ecosystem. We completed our mint last week, did our reveal last Friday, and the response in the days and the week since has been absolutely incredible. And so shout out to all the THORGuards out there. We successfully sold out our public sale in 15 minutes after 4 days of whitelist and raffle winner sales, raised 736 ETH, and then have traded almost 700 ETH on secondaries on OpenSea. And just seeing, it's just been an incredibly fun and exciting project to watch come to life. We are in the final, I think, like 20 minutes of our Fat Thor auction. So the Treasury accidentally, no intention of ours, minted a number of the ultra rare Fat Thors, and that was not our intention. And so we wanted to just find a way to give them away to the community in fun ways. So we're going to be giving away 2 for free to the community through different means over the next couple weeks. But today, wrapping up now, we have a 1-of-1 ultra rare Fat Thor. And we'll be giving away 100% of the of the proceeds to different charities. And so the highest bid right now sits at 10.5 ETH. And this auction wraps up in 18 minutes here. So you can check that out, the pinned tweet on our THORGuards Twitter. With that, thank you everybody so much. That concludes this week's THORChain weekly live stream. Big thank you to our friends at 9 Realms and to Chad from the THORChain team, again, for all the work that you've been doing and for joining us, taking the time to chat with us here today. Also, DGen from DefiSpot. Thank you all, and have a great weekend ahead. And we'll see you next week for the Eastern Hemisphere weekly live stream. Take care, y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.